and then I am going to hand it over to Zita.
Thank you, Kira, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our audience. Thank you all for joining. My name is Zita. My pronouns are she and her. I have the privilege of serving as one of the leadership team advisors, and I will be introducing you to our theme for this year. But before I do that, I would like to share um, why we chose this theme. So I think that most of us in this conversation or in this meeting are either activists, researchers, developers, or writers, or Wikipedian contributors. And we have all contributed in one way or the other to making the internet what it is today. And despite the fact that the internet undoubtedly has become very beneficial to humanity, such that we are able to access knowledge and information, connect with others like we are doing right now, and share our stories online. It has also brought about new challenges, some of it being the replication of the same systems of oppression that exist offline. Um, for instance, patriarchy, racism, and inequality. And you would all agree with me that the knowledge that we share online today shapes which narratives are being registered, assessed, and remembered in the future. So, which stories will define tomorrow and whose voices will be heard? These are some of the important questions that prompted our minds while we're crafting this theme. And we realized that now more than ever, we need to create a more inclusive space online to ensure that marginalized voices can be registered and heard online. However, cis women, trans, non-binary, and queer people continue to face rampant harassment and violence in digital spaces. I read an article recently about how online users are weaponizing gender disinformation against women in Uganda. In addition to this, with the emergence of AI, um, this artificial intelligence is being used with algorithms to reinforce real-world biases. So we think that a feminist internet will challenge these norms and create digital spaces that promote equity, representation, and the right to be heard, especially for marginalized groups. As a result, we chose this theme for this year's campaign and the next. We are therefore inviting you to envision with this theme, which says, what would a truly feminist internet look like? We are inviting you to envision or imagine the future of the internet. You might be wondering, what can you do if you agree to join us? Well, if you are an artist, we think you could use your creativity to help us envision the future. Or if you are a technologist and activist, we think you could use your expertise to help build the structures and practices needed to support a truly feminist internet. And if you are a Wikipedian or Wikimedian like me, we invite you to organize an art and feminism event, whether it's an editathon, meetup, panel, or another community-driven initiative. Whoever you are, we invite you to join us. Your voice is essential in exploring and uplifting the work of archives, collectives, and movements already laying the groundwork for a feminist internet. And with that, I say thank you once again for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing your amazing initiatives and events. We, the advisors, are happy to clarify and respond any questions you may have about the theme. Thank you, and back to Kira.
This is Kira speaking. Thanks so much, Zita. I want to pause here to just see if anybody has any questions about what Zita shared about the theme. I also included in the chat the link to the campaign letter that explains more of what Zita just shared. All right, we'll move on for now. So next, I want to hand it over to Chris, who is from the Wikimedia Foundation and is going to give a short presentation. Oh, I'm sorry, Abukar, I see your hand. You can go ahead and unmute. Abukar, can you hear me? Do you want to ask your question?
Oh, oui, mais je parle français. OK. C'est le thème. Est-ce qu'elle peut expliquer encore davantage? Parce que je n'ai pas bien compris. Peut-être j'irai chercher, faire plus de recherches pour comprendre, mais elle a pris un exemple d'Ouganda et autres. Si elle pouvait un peu revenir sur le thème là, si ça ne prend pas le temps.
Thanks for that question. Zita, do you want to reiterate the example you shared about Uganda?
Yes, so the example I shared about Uganda is so there are these feminist activists that are being attacked online for protesting against the government, and in order to silence them, online users are mostly putting out hate speech and wrong information about these women online. So that was just to give you an example of how unsafe the internet is becoming for minority groups like women and LGBTQ people. So with this theme, we are inviting you to share with us or create a space or come up with an initiative that can help, highlight the global efforts that are being put together or being worked on to ensure a safe internet or a more inclusive internet for everyone. And as a Wikipedian, one way you could do that is by organizing an art and feminism event or a panel discussion or a panel discussion or an editathon, whichever you choose to go with. Abubakari, I hope this was helpful.
Thanks, Zita. This is Kira speaking. I also put into the chat the theme letter in French and Spanish as well for ease of reference. Are there any other questions about the theme before we move on? And of course, as questions surface, we can go from there too.
Moi, j'ai une question par rapport au thème. Oui, Dominique et Liane. Par rapport au thème, en fait, je me mets un peu à la place des organisateurs. S'ils doivent organiser un événement, par exemple, qui rentre dans le cadre, qui est semblable à un panel, par exemple, un panel d'échange, de discussion. quels seraient les indicateurs de réussite de cet événement-là? Parce que selon le dashboard qu'on crée, on a, les organisateurs sont habitués à créer, par exemple, des dashboards pour des rencontres d'éditathons, de production de contenu. Et s'ils doivent organiser des événements tels que les panels, quels pourraient être les indicateurs qui pourraient apparaître dans le dashboard? Ça, c'est la première question. La deuxième question est... D'accord, d'accord, d'accord.
On ne reçoit plus. Bonsoir, bonsoir à tous. On ne reçoit plus Madame Dominique.
Non, il est en train de traduire la question que j'ai posée.
Ah, ok.
OK. Donc, la deuxième question que je pose, c'est est-ce que un organisateur peut organiser deux événements? C'est-à-dire, il décide par exemple de faire un panel de discussion sur le thème et sur tous les dérivés. Est-ce qu'à côté de ce panel de discussion là, il peut organiser maintenant un éditathon histoire de produire du contenu sur les femmes dans le domaine de l'art dans leur pays? Est-ce que si un organisateur décide d'organiser deux événements, il peut recevoir le financement pour ces deux événements-là?
This is Kira speaking. Thanks for your questions. To answer your second question first, an organizer can propose or can hold as many events as they want. When it comes to the art and feminism microfunding, which we'll get into a little bit more in detail soon, you can only apply for funding once per campaign through the art and feminism microfunding. If you are interested in doing multiple events, rapid grants might be a more appropriate fit. And Chris will also be giving a presentation about rapid grants. The first question, now I'm trying to remember it. The first question was about indicators of success, I think. So I would say from the art and feminism leadership perspective, we are very conscious of not trying to put hard numbers on things, recognizing that you and your community know your community best. And so we don't want to say you need this many editors or this many edits for a successful event. We think that if you are able to organize an event that is relevant to the theme, you're able to center that community care, and you're able to get people engaged in the art and feminism's theme as well as wiki, then we think that that's successful. I know that that is a little bit open, but it's also kind of purposely so, to make sure that we can, and so we can talk about with your regional leader, like what might be more relevant or helpful in the context of each particular region. I don't know if anyone else from the leadership team wants to add more to that. So I hope then that that at least starts to answer your questions. And I think given the nature of the questions, it seems like it's a good segue to go into the next part of the presentation that will go a little bit more in detail about funding opportunities. So I am going to now hand it over to Chris to talk more about rapid funds.
This is Chris Schilling. Thanks, Kira, for the introduction and segue. Some of you know me, but my name is Chris Schilling. Some folks call me Jethro in the Wikimedia community. But I am a program officer supporting funding programs for communities in North America, as well as Central and Eastern Europe and Central Asia. I also have a background as a volunteer editor, mostly in English Wikipedia, but also in a few other Wikimedia projects as well. And I have some background as an organizer of some events, mostly in with culture institutions like libraries and museums. So all of that background has been helpful for me in my current role at the foundation in a few different ways. And I'm sorry, I use he, they pronouns, as noted on the slide here. So today I'm going to be giving an overview on a few different things about the Rapid Fund program, which is our kind of small grants program that the Wikimedia Foundation maintains. In this overview, I'll be talking a little bit about some activities and projects that we fund. I'll also talk about what is eligible for funding in general, in terms of the kinds of projects, as well as different kinds of expenses that you might be seeking in a potential project or event you want to run. And then I'll be giving some basic steps for how to get started if you're interested in applying for rapid funds in the future. And there's an image I have on here of a lakeside picture kind of representing an overview in this summary slide. Next slide, please. So for folks kind of wanting to know a very kind of basic understanding of what the Rapid Fund program is all about, it's, as I said, a small grants program that the Wikimedia Foundation maintains where applicants can apply to receive between $500 and $5,000 USD. And that funding can be used to organize a pretty wide variety of events and projects that generally are going to have some benefit for Wikimedia projects and the communities that use or contribute to them in different ways. Next slide, please. So I want to give a few examples of things that we have recently funded in Rapid Funds, some of which are thematically related to much of the work that Art+Feminism supports. So a few examples are that last year we funded a Canadian duo of institutions, Center A and the Belkin Gallery, to conduct a series of editathons and workshops to focus on the visibility of different activist art movements, their contributors, and also related organizations that are a part of those activist movements. The image that I've chosen to, that's above this particular project is an article that was worked on during those editathons. And that article was about an artist named Mona Hatoum, who's a British Palestinian artist. And her work in this image is a stainless steel neon glass tube installation at a museum in Canada. And it goes by the name Hotspot as the title of the work. We've also funded an initiative called Wiki Portraits, which is the second image that you'll see here. In the Wiki Portraits campaign initiative, their goal is to, in general, try to support and increase the number of high-quality photos on Wikipedia biographies, especially in underrepresented communities that participate in the film and entertainment industry in general. Or in the arts as well. There is also some work they've done in the arts in that. And so one image they were able to capture at their event at SXSW, a major conference in the United States, was an image of Ada Limon, who's the 24th Poet Laureate of the United States. and also the first Latina to be chosen as a poet laureate. And then a final example, again coming from Canada, is a series of workshops called the Cinémathèque Québécois Wiki Workshops done by the Quebec Cinémathèque organization. And they put on a series of editathons to improve content related to French-Canadian filmmakers on primarily on French Wikipedia, but also to improve content on Wikimedia Commons as well as Wikidata. Next slide, please. So I want to move on to talk about sort of what is eligible for funding in terms of the kinds of projects that you might want to do or that could be done or things that we've funded before. So some examples of activities that we funded previously are things like local events that are connected to large Wikimedia campaigns, such as Art+Feminism and its annual campaign. As noted in some of the examples, we also fund editathons as well as workshops, both for new as well as experienced contributors to Wikimedia projects. We also support things like informal meetups that can help support general community engagement to help a community of people get to know each other and support them to work together. We, certainly know that editors work independently some of the time, but we also see a lot of good outcomes coming from collaborative work happening amongst editors and contributors within a particular community. We also support formal meetings to help support a group to think more strategically or think about more long-term planning around their kind of organizational growth or larger project planning that might require more concerted efforts. So formal meetings to help do that are something else we've supported. And then we've also funded work with institutions that are collaborations between, say, a group of interested contributors or individuals who want to do a collaboration with a library or a museum or a school or an archive or any other number of culture institutions that have an interest in contributing to free knowledge in some way. Next slide, please. So then moving on to expenses, some examples of expenses of things that we can actually fund in a budget for these kinds of events include things like working space. If you would need to reserve working space to organize your event, that's certainly doable. Different services that you might need to help support that working space. We also support prizes for things like contests, as long as those prizes are not outrageously expensive, for example. We support, expenses related to do outreach to actually help invite and communicate your event out to different communities that you want to invite to participate or to inform them about those events. We also support data costs to help support access to online events if you're wanting to apply for a virtual event where your primary audience is going to be participating online. And this is particularly helpful for communities where data costs and connectivity can be very expensive for individual participants. We do support some project-related travel for organizers to help those organizers get to those events, as well as some for participants as well. We also provide compensation for some well-defined roles, provided that those roles don't replace volunteer activities on Wikimedia projects. These tend to be things like tasks related to graphic design, training roles, childcare services, translation work, to prepare like materials for an event, for an example, some project management type work as well, and also Wikimedia in residence type roles. We also have more complete criteria available on MetaWiki. So for folks who want to check those out, you can click on that link on the presentation for more later if you want to review more complete criteria. So those are just some examples. It's very hard to give a very complete list of everything because we are often seeing new ideas coming into our application process. And so it's not possible to kind of fully list everything that might be possible. So we are open to funding needs that are beyond these specific examples. But importantly, the projects and expenses that are being proposed in Rapid Fund should be aligned with the general mission of the Wikimedia Foundation, which is to collect and develop educational content under a free license or in the public domain, and to disseminate it, effectively, and with a global scale in mind, which our projects tend to be able to do to some degree. Next slide, please. So the last thing I want to go over today is just to briefly kind of recommend a few steps for how to get started if you're interested in applying for Rapid Funds. The first step that I would ask folks to do is to think about the eligibility criteria for the program to make sure that they are that applicants, are a good fit for some basic boundaries we've set up for the program. Our eligibility requirements have to do with things like the amount of funding you're applying for, that you are sort of a Wikimedia community member or a part of a group and organization that is kind of related to the Wikimedia movement in some way, that your project, is somewhat time bound. So we ask that projects, are kind of within a 12-month period in terms of length. And there are a few other considerations as well. We also recommend that if you're a first-time applicant, that you review other proposals that have been funded in your region or others. So you are able to actually go to MetaWiki to each of our regions to see what we've been funding in the Rapid Fund program in the past year, as well as in previous years as well. You may find a project that looks similar to one you want to do. Or maybe there's a project by someone that that has been funded before. And so it can be helpful to reach out to them to ask more about their proposal or their project if you think you might benefit from learning more about their experience from running a Rapid Fund project in the past. We also ask that you take some time to review the application. We do have the form available on Google Docs, which we recommend that folks, draft their proposal in, because when you go to apply, we have a different platform called Flux that we ask applicants to use to actually formally submit those proposals. But the application on Google Docs can be used to draft your application, and you can also contact me about your application to share with me or your program officer, what you are thinking about applying for, so you can get some potential feedback before you start applying. We also ask that you register on Flux, and there are some instructions there. And I'm sorry, there's a video I meant to link there, and I will do that after our presentation today. There is also a video that will walk folks through the registration process. But there are step-by-step instructions also available on MetaWiki for how to register. And then finally, if you have just other questions that you want to ask about the Rapid Funds or about your project idea, you're always welcome to contact me or another program officer for support. So you can feel free to email me anytime after this presentation today if you want to chat about your proposal or about the Rapid Fund program in general. So thanks everyone very much. And if you need to reach out to me, again, my email is there at the bottom, or you can also contact me on Wiki. My username is there at the bottom as well. It's iJethroBT, WMF. And I know that we'll be having a Q&A session a little bit later. So if folks have questions during that part of the session today, very happy to answer more questions about the funding program. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Chris. This is Kira speaking. I do see that there are some questions in the chat, but I think it might be helpful for Miranda and I to go over the Art and Feminism microfunding in the same time, and then we can go to the questions overall about funding. Hopefully that sounds good to everyone. But Chris, of course, I did see some questions in the chat if you wanted to get in there. But to start, Am I still sharing screen? I'm sorry, I can't tell. Am I?
Yeah, Kira, you're fine with sharing screen, so
Okay.
it's visible to me.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
So I wanted to, of course, share more about the art and feminism opportunities. I'm going to put into the chat right now. We've actually prepared a quick guide for funding that goes over our microfunding reimbursement, as well as giving some links to the rapid grants that Chris was going over. And we have that available in a couple different languages that I went ahead and put there in the chat. So right here is just a screenshot, but I just want to kind of go over this at a high level. We do have some important resources here at the top that goes to some microfunding FAQ, as well as our community care statement and our COVID precautions for in-person event. One of the things that I really want to make very clear is at Art and Feminism, we are still centering our community care, and we still want to really uplift that we are, even though a lot of places are acting as if a global pandemic still isn't happening, it is, unfortunately. And we really want to be thinking about, as an organization, as a feminist organization, how to keep the most vulnerable members in our community safe. And you can read more about that in our community care statement. And that's really why we want to center that in our work. And we do make it a requirement for microfunding reimbursement. So the microfunding with Art and Feminism really is up to $250, and it's a reimbursement. If you click on this link, actually, let me try to do this. Are you able to see this new tab with me scrolling now? Great. So we have in here listed what our eligible expenses are, including COVID-19 mitigation supplies, such as high quality face masks, COVID tests, air purifiers, and ventilation. We also, of course, reimbursed for internet and data connectivity, childcare and babysitting, refreshments and catering, workplace venues, graphic designers, accessibility measures, language interpretation and translation, digital promotion, and membership for library or archive access when partnership is not possible. Here we have our basic criteria for applicants, as well as the steps in what you need to do to apply. So our form hopefully is, I'm going to invite Miranda in just a moment to go over our form, but we actually tried to make it a little bit more streamlined this year around to hopefully make it a little bit easier. And then we work on a disbursement schedule of when your events happen and when that disbursement date will happen. So I'm actually going to next stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Miranda to do a high-level walkthrough of the Art and Feminism microfunding reimbursement form.
Hi all, thank you, Kira. I'm Miranda. I'm the Wikipedian assistant at Art and Feminism. I'm also the administrative assistant, and I'll be walking you through our new funding and event reporting form. I'm going to share my screen. Just really quickly get it situated. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Excellent. This is the back end of this new form. This is not how it will appear when you insert the link into your browser, but I'm going to show you the overview of the total form in the back so you can see what changes we've made. So this is our event reporting form. Whether or not you're applying for funding with us, we ask that you fill this out because your feedback is very helpful for us, and there's a section for feedback. For the event reporting form, there is conditional logic, which means it pops up that you need to fill out if you followed the COVID protocols and took COVID precautions. The first page is going to be the organizer and event information. Here we've deleted a lot of unnecessary questions and just left the pertinent information for ourselves on the back end, which is name, email, event date, Art and Feminism calendar link, and the event dashboard link. When you fill those out, we're going to have a general feedback section pop up. All of these questions are optional, but we have moved this to the top of the form. So if you aren't applying for funding and you still want to leave us feedback, it will be easier to do so. We love seeing your photos, so please share your photos with us. It's just like so exciting to go through those every year. And then the last question on this page is about requesting reimbursement up to $250 in USD. If you click no, you'll be taken to the end of the form. If you click yes, this section on the reimbursement request will pop up. This is where you'll enter whether or not your event was held virtually. If it was hybrid or in person, these two questions on COVID mitigation will pop up. So we ask that you fill those out. And then this page will pop up, which shows which costs were covered by your reimbursement, including the COVID mitigation, internet and data connectivity, childcare and babysitting, etc. You can also click other if your expense was not listed on this list, but it was listed on the bigger guide, and just type in what your expense was. Here you can type in the total amount spent in USD. And here you can upload your documentation of expenses, which are receipts and things like that. All of those questions are required. And then here it will ask if you're in the US or outside of the US. And that will determine which questions pop up for payment information. Previously, the form was really clunky. And this section showed all of the bank information at once and asked you all of the questions, even if they weren't relevant to your region. So I've gone in and made the logic easier, so it just shows you the questions that are relevant to your region. So some of these will pop up for you and some of them won't, depending on where you're located. And then there's a section for additional comments. And then it will take you to thank you for providing your feedback. And Kira and I on the back end will work on those disbursements. The last day to submit forms for, I think, October through yesterday was yesterday, January 15th. The next date will be on that quick guide for funding. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time. Another thing that we did to try and make this process easier was last year we had 4 dates for reimbursement. This year we've added a 5th date. So hopefully you can get your money a little bit faster. But thank you for your time.
This is Kira speaking. Thanks so much, Miranda. So now we are at the point for question and answer. What questions do you have about either the art and feminism theme as a whole, rapid grants, the art and feminism micro funding reimbursement? What do you have? I see that there are some questions during Chris's presentation about timeline. I don't know, Chris, if you want to, I know you shared some in the chat, but if you wanted to share a little bit more about the timeline questions.
This is Chris. Yeah, Kira, I can talk a little bit about some of those questions. There were 2 questions in chat, one from Nicole and one from Atta about projects starting in March for Rapid Funds. And so the general questions were like, we have a project idea that we'd like to begin in March. Can we apply for Rapid Funds to begin that project in March? And my recommendation on that is probably going to be no, that project, like proposal should probably start a little bit later, because we, are not going to get you funding for that project to begin in March, basically based on our review cycles. Our next review cycle for Rapid Funds, because while we do accept applications to be submitted at any time during the year, we have kind of structured review cycles throughout the year to review sets of proposals and to make decisions on them, and then to send funding out to those, to those proposals that are funded. And so the next cycle begins with the submission deadline for next applications on February 15th. And in general, those proposals should, generally have a project start date of April, because, we have time built in after we receive those proposals to review them, to ask applicants questions as we might need to, and then to make funding decisions, and then to actually send those funds out to grantees. And so I think it will be difficult to start a project in March. And so my recommendation for folks is to think about, is to consider starting the project a little bit later, because you will not be able to get funding sort of in time. You would have had to submit for the previous cycle to begin your proposal in March, based on when we send out those funds in general.
This is Kira. Thanks, Chris. What other questions do people have? No other questions? That's surprising.
This is Chris. I have one other thing I can add, Kira. But Abubakar, please go ahead. I'll add my commentary afterwards.
Alors, si tu pouvais faire une traduction instantanée, ça pourrait m'aider. Je ne sais pas comment tu peux faire. Le traducteur, parce que je parle français. J'ai vu avec Eliane, il fallait qu'elle parle et puis tu traduis d'abord. Est-ce que tu peux faire une traduction instantanée?
Est-ce qu'il nous entend? J'ai l'impression qu'il est coupé. Please, Kira, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Does the translator can hear us, because we're not able to hear from him now?
Oh, okay. Rufin.
Maybe an issue with his mic.
Yeah. No, yeah, thank you. I'm sorry about that. Let me.
Sorry, could you resend me, please?
Oh, ok. Je crois qu'il est là.
Ok. Je disais si je pouvais, ce que je veux dire, si tu pouvais traduire instantanément ou bien il faut que je m'interrompe à chaque fois. Ah, ok, merci. Alors, merci déjà pour cette présentation et bonne année 2025. Ok, mais là, je t'entends, donc je vais voir qu'est-ce que je dois enlever. Ok, je quitte la chaîne en français parce que je t'entends quand je parle. Ok, donc
C'est lui
je
qui quitte
continue.
la chaîne en français pour te traduire, en fait. Donc, laisse,
Ok.
voilà.
Ça marche. Donc, je disais merci déjà pour cette présentation. Et je suis très heureux d'être là cette année et bonne année. Et donc, ma question d'abord, c'est pour ceux de Art et Féminisme, le financement. J'avais lu les critères et j'ai cru comprendre qu'ils ne financent qu'une personne une seule fois dans l'année, ou bien je n'ai pas bien compris. Une seule fois dans l'année, parce que j'avais lu dans les critères.
Yes, we only fund for the Art and Feminism microfunding one event in the year, correct?
Dans l'année. D'accord. Alors, donc je pars au niveau de Rapid Grant. Nous avons suspendu, par exemple, en Guinée, la demande de plan annuel de juin 2024 à juin 2025, histoire de revoir les 2 plans annuels qu'on avait déjà faits et remettre tous nos financements à zéro et savoir sur quelle nouvelle base partir. Et du coup, les 2 expériences nous ont montré que le financement que nous recevons ne tenait pas et nos activités et des projets comme Art et Féminisme, Wikitong ou lire Wikipédia en classe, Wikipédia, Learn Wikipédia in Classroom. Donc, on a dû supprimer certains projets très importants qui avaient de l'impact avant l'arrivée du plan annuel. Et cette année, on avait pensé laisser Art et Féminisme de côté et avoir un financement de Rapid Grant qui va être spécialement, au lieu de faire une demande de remboursement à Art et Féminisme, faire un Rapid Grant de 5 000 qui va être réparti sur l'année sur les activités de Art et Féminisme et engagé à partir de ce mois, parce que les demandes finissent en février, la demande de juin 2025 pour 2026, le plan annuel. Est-ce que cela est compatible? Faire une rapide grande qui va être spécifiquement pour Art et Féminisme et que Art et Féminisme ne soit pas dans le plan annuel du mouvement de la Guinée. Est-ce que cela est compatible?
This is Kira speaking. I think that Rufin was having some connectivity issues, so I think that I saw some of your question in the caption.
Si tu traduis, on entend sur le canal français, anglais.
What I think the question was, though, and what I think that there might be some confusion, and maybe I am missing it in translation a little, is kind of like just to differentiate that these are different funding opportunities. So the Art and Feminism microfunding is a reimbursement for a single art and feminism event. So it's completely separate from anything kind of funding through the Wikimedia Foundation, through their annual plans or their rapid grant. And what I think was happening, and again, I'm sorry that I know that Rufin was having some connectivity issues for the translation, is that Abukar, what you were saying was challenges with sustainability because of annual funding. I don't know, Chris, if you were able to catch more.
Si je peux ajouter quelque chose. Ok. Alors, Aboubacar, la question de Aboubacar, c'est voilà, la question de Aboubacar, c'était de savoir, puisque eux, en ce moment, leur financement annuel est en suspens. Est-ce que, en tant que communauté guinéenne, ils peuvent faire une demande à la fondation pour plusieurs activités Art plus Féminisme, c'est-à-dire, puisque la limite de financement, c'est 5 000, est-ce qu'ils peuvent faire une demande qui va être budgétisée peut-être à 5 000 ou 4 000, mais pour plusieurs activités Art et Féminisme qu'ils vont étendre sur l'année? Donc, ce que moi, je voulais dire déjà avant que Kira ne réponde, ou bien vous voulez traduire ce résumé à Kira? C'était ça la question en fait. Ok, d'accord. Donc, ce que moi, je voulais ajouter à la réponse de Kira, c'est Boubacar, tu peux faire ta demande, tu fais une demande en une fois pour un événement que tu budgétises. L'événement peut être comment on appelle, organisé sur l'année, ça dit première partie, deuxième partie, ça dépend vraiment de l'organisation que vous allez, de comment vous voulez organiser cet événement-là. Et donc, tu fais la demande si le budget est à 5 000 dollars ou à 4 000 dollars et la fondation va analyser, ils vont vous accorder le financement en fait. Mais je ne sais pas si ta question était, est-ce que tu peux faire une demande, deuxième demande, troisième demande au nom de Art plus Féminisme pour un budget total de 5 000. Si c'est le cas, là, je pense que ça va compliquer un peu les choses. Mais
Non,
si tu... OK,
ce n'est pas
OK,
le cas.
OK. Dans ce cas, tu fais une demande qui coûte, pour un événement qui coûte 5 000, mais qui peut s'étendre. Il y a des événements qui peuvent s'étendre. Ça dit, pour ce trimestre, on fait telle action, pour l'autre trimestre ou pour tout le mois prochain, on fait telle action. La campagne A plus féminisme, ça s'étend sur une année. Donc, si tu fais ta demande et que ton financement est accordé, tu peux étendre ton activité en fonction du type d'activité que tu as présenté à la demande de financement, en fait. Je pense que tu peux faire ça ainsi en une seule demande, si on t'accorde le financement, c'est bon, quoi. Kira me dira si ce que j'ai dit
Mhm.
est adapté. Ouais.
I'll actually send this over to Chris as this, if I'm understanding correctly, is more of a Wikimedia Foundation funding question.
This is Chris. So the circumstances here are very specific, and what I'm going to first recommend is that Abubakar, that you should talk with your regional program officer first, because ultimately this is going to require a conversation around the fact that an organization that you're associated with is applying for a different funding program, which we haven't talked about today, general support funding. I think that's what's being referred to here. And there's also an interest in applying for rapid funding. In general, just talking about rapid funding now, it is okay to apply for funding for a series of events and rapid funds that occurs throughout the year. So it's not the case that you have to only run like one single event. You can run, for example, as was brought up earlier, you can use rapid funds, for example, to host an edit-a-thon, as well as like host a talk, like a series of talks, for example, especially if they're all related to a similar theme. So that has been done before. But if you are applying for multiple kinds of funding, especially if you're applying for general support funding, again, a different funding program, and also want to apply for rapid funds, you need to talk with your regional program officer. In general, we tend not to support people to maintain both of those kinds of grants at the same time. And if you are in the middle of applying for general support funding, we generally like to have any rapid funds that you want to apply for sort of finished and wrapped up by the time that your general support fund starts. So that's the general policy that I've used in my regions, and I know that other program officers tend to follow a similar policy, but it kind of depends on a few other circumstances as well. So my recommendation would be, please reach out to your regional program officer first to talk about that.
This is Kira. Thanks, Chris. I know we're over time, so if people need to leave, you're welcome, kind of giving that permission to do so. Paula, I did see that your hand was raised, so I do want to see if you're still able to ask your question in the room.
Il y avait également des questions dans le chat.
Yeah, hi everyone, nice to meet you. My name is Paula from Colombia, and I was also, well, I'm a Spanish speaker, so quería pedir soporte también de las intérpretes. Mi pregunta era sobre todo cómo se reportan los gastos tanto en los Rapid Grants como en los microfinanciamientos y qué soportes son válidos para ese reporte.
Hey Paula, thanks for the question. So I'll first answer about the Art and Feminism microfunding. So the Art and Feminism microfunding is a reimbursement. So it would be after your event happens, you would fill out that form that Miranda shared. And really, we've tried to really streamline it. So it's really just submitting receipts for reimbursement, really. Chris, do you want to speak more to the reporting for the rapid funds?
This is Chris, and yeah, Kira, thanks. For rapid funds, it works a little bit differently because we do send all the funding kind of upfront. And so it is not a reimbursement model. And the way that reporting works is that when you propose your or submit your application for rapid funds, part of that application is a budget with kind of the relevant expenses. And we have some templates available for folks to use to help, organize and sort of prepare that budget. You can also use a different format if that one is kind of too clunky or, it's too much. Sometimes a simpler budget is sufficient. But it's essentially we ask you to, when you go to report is to revisit those budget items and then to report on kind of how much spending you did on those items. If you have leftover funds, that's fine. That's not a problem. Just to be clear, many people do not fully spend on their grant, and that's very normal. In those cases, we tend to support grantees to maintain those funds if they wish to apply for another rapid fund in the future. And so those remaining funds can be used for a subsequent rapid fund in the future. Or if they are done and don't expect to apply again in the future, those funds can simply be returned to the foundation, and we have some instructions for how to do that.
This is
Paula, does that answer your question around reporting for rapid funds, as well as for the reimbursement? Sorry, the microgrants program that Art+Feminism runs?
Sí, muchísimas gracias también por el espacio.
Thanks, Paula. Thanks, Chris. I do see some questions in the chat. Asme
Oui,
asked about. Oh,
désolé, j'ai une question. J'avais levé la main tout à l'heure et
Ouais, il y a une question en français qui est de Franck Acoueté. Et sa question est, la période est-elle appropriée pour une activité prévue le mois
yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
de mars? Est-ce qu'il peut faire sa demande maintenant? Je crois que c'est la question.
Thanks. For Art and Feminism microfunding, the answer is yes, because it's a reimbursement. However, for rapid grants, I'll let you answer.
This is Chris. Thanks, Kira. This was a question that was brought up earlier, and my recommendation for organizers that are hoping to plan an event in March is that because we may not be able to send funding to you on time for that event, that rapid funds probably won't be a good option to apply for funding for that event. If it's possible to reschedule the event for April, that is more doable because that's when we were expecting to send funding for the next round of applications, which are due on February 15th.
This is Kira. Thanks, Chris. I do want to surface some questions that happened in the chat. Asme is asking if somebody can assist with, I'm using a translator, so I think I just assist more with the form.
Désolé, excusez-moi, j'aurais vraiment besoin de poser une question. Ok, bonjour à tous. Bonne année à tout un chacun. Je suis wikipédien ivoirien. Actuellement, je réside au Togo. Donc, ma question est de savoir, est-ce que je pourrais faire une demande de financement d'ici, puisque mon projet était de le reconduire, de conduire plutôt mon projet au Togo cette année, au lieu de le faire en Côte d'Ivoire. Donc, j'aimerais savoir si c'est faisable que je le fasse direct. Je demande le fonds ici directement, plutôt que de passer par la Côte d'Ivoire.
What type of funding are you asking about?
Un financement d'une longue période, au moins 1 an, puisque je suis dans le domaine de l'art, je suis artiste et j'ai un projet qui tourne autour de l'art et l'art féministe. Donc, c'est un peu ma...
Hi, this is Kira. So if I'm understanding correctly, you have a project about feminist art. So if you want to apply for funding, Art and Feminism offers a reimbursement model. And then the rapid grants would be the another option for an Art and Feminism event that would be starting at least in April or further. I'm gonna put, in case it got missed earlier, also the guide in French that we have around funding, that hopefully that will be helpful.
Oui, ok. Et la deuxième question que j'avais demandé, c'est que actuellement je réside au Togo. Donc, je sais pas si la demande doit être faite par le user group de Côte d'Ivoire plutôt que par le user group du Togo. Je sais pas si Dominique Eliane est là, elle pourra mieux expliquer. Bien mieux.
D'accord. Alors, moi, je conseillerais, c'est que tu te rapproches de la communauté du Togo, puisque tu es maintenant basé au niveau du Togo, tu te rapproches de la communauté du Togo, parce que eux aussi sont impliqués dans dans l'organisation des activités art plus féminisme. Donc, tu vois avec eux, est-ce qu'ils ont prévu quelque chose dans le cadre de la campagne Art plus féminisme pour cette année, s'ils ont prévu ce que tu as prévu, est-ce que les projets peuvent se rejoindre ou pas? Vous essayez de voir ensemble et puis vous faites une demande de financement pour le Rapid Grant. Puisque si c'est un gros événement, si c'est une grosse rencontre, le Rapid Grant sera mieux pour toi. Vous faites la demande en une fois et ensuite vous pouvez faire l'événement par période, comme on l'a dit tout à l'heure pour Aboubacar. Maintenant, si c'est un événement à moyenne capacité budgétaire, tu peux faire la demande de micro-grant avec Art+Féminisme. Alors moi, je résidais en France lorsque j'ai organisé un événement Art+Féminisme, mais c'était pour le projet Wikimosso qui est en Côte d'Ivoire. Donc, je vais dire que tu peux le faire, mais l'idéal, ce serait que tu te rapproches de la communauté togolaise plutôt que de travailler dans ton coin, être seul, puisque tu n'es plus à Abidjan pour travailler avec la communauté ivoirienne. Donc, tu te rapproches de la communauté togolaise, voir ce que eux ils ont prévu dans le cadre de la campagne Art+Féminisme, puisque je suis en contact avec eux aussi. S'ils n'ont pas prévu d'activité à organiser pour cette année-là, tu peux leur proposer, alors voici un projet que j'ai et que je pense qu'on pourrait mettre en œuvre dans le cadre de la campagne Art+Féminisme. Peut-être ce qui peut se poser comme difficulté, c'est le contenu sur lequel vous allez travailler. Est-ce que c'est du contenu togolais? Est-ce que c'est du contenu ivoirien? Puisque toi, tu es ivoirien, est-ce que tu vas plutôt emmener les équipes togolaises à produire du contenu sur les Ivoiriens ou tu vas leur proposer le projet pour enrichir le Wikimedia togolais, etc. C'est vraiment à toi de voir ça avec eux, organiser véritablement quel type d'événement vous allez faire ensemble et puis ensuite soumettre à la Fondation pour la demande de Rapid Grants.
Ok, merci bien, c'est bien compris.
Okay, thank you. So then just going to, I see there's one more question I think that we haven't answered yet in the chat. It's from Anthony. Yes. Yes, thank you. Dominique will be able to follow up directly with ASME to be able to further assist. And then I know we're over time, but Anthony, if you're still on the line, do you want to ask your question in the room?
Yeah, sure. So we were all talking about requesting the fund, but I think we also need to consider how we report them. So I would just want to ask some strategies we could do, so we could be able to present those activities we have conducted accordingly, and to be able to submit the report on time.
This is Chris. I can take that question. Although, Kira, if you have other feedback, you're certainly welcome to add considerations as well. This is a good question, Anthony. Thanks for asking it. I think a few things that come to mind in terms of providing a good report and doing it in a good time frame. I want to address the second point here, which is on the time frame, like being able to submit stuff on time, which is great when that is doable. You know, when you apply, you set up a start and an end date for your project. But I also want to acknowledge that there are lots of circumstances that can arise in planning and implementing a project that can cause things to become delayed from the time that you kind of initially submitted the proposal. That can range from like a partner you're working with saying like, oh, we want to do this later now, or it could be like the speakers that you want to be available just aren't available when you want them to be. Or there could be kind of other circumstances that are just not within your control that can arise. And just want to acknowledge to everybody here that that's very normal and is part of everyday organizing in the movement. And so the first thing I want to acknowledge is that getting things in kind of on time is not the most important thing when it comes to running a successful event. We provide a lot of leeway for organizers to adjust their schedule for their events and their projects if they need more time. And all that really requires is just a brief email to your program officer to say, hey, we would like a little bit more time because, these things came up. And as long as that is, communicated to us, we were very happy to give more time for organizers to help, complete and finish their events or do reporting that they might want to do. So just want to acknowledge that on the sort of time frame sense. Again, it's great when things can be done on time, but it's not always possible, and that's okay. On the other aspect of this, of just generally being able to kind of write a good quality report, I think the thing that is most helpful, I find, for organizers, as well as something I look at to share with other organizers in the movement when I go to reference reporting or rapid fund projects in general, is the kind of effort that's put into reflection from the writer of that report, the organizers who are involved with that reporting. And that's reflection on sort of like what went well, what didn't go so well, what did we need to change? Because I think these sorts of things reflect really important and very realistic aspects of being an organizer that aren't always visible from the outset when you're sort of planning and sort of thinking about running a project. And so I think that preparing and being able to think about and share those aspects of what you've learned or what you found your team was learning about as you were running that event are sort of one of the most helpful parts of reporting. And then in addition, I think is trying to identify what are the parts of impact or outcomes from your event that you felt like were most important. Sometimes those are the things that you set goals for in the metrics or outcomes that you set, in the proposal. But sometimes it's something completely different that you didn't expect to see or hear about. And sometimes those come in the form of stories or anecdotes or things that you observe in the course of your events that you run with participants. Sometimes you find a participant comes to an event with a story or an interest that is surprising and sort of moving from a kind of personal level. And I think being able to sort of notice and think about how those stories are sort of interacting with your event are really interesting and important to report on, because it's showing a kind of impact, of not just, improvements to articles and things like that, which have value, but there's also other value that can come from events in terms of the, sort of connections that you make with people as a consequence of your event. And so those kinds of impacts and observations and stories, I think, can also be really helpful and valuable to share as a part of your reporting, even if they don't translate well into the maybe metrics or outcomes that you imagined from the start of the event. There's lots of emergent or unexpected kinds of events and things that can happen at your projects and activities that I think are really special and I think important to share.
Thanks, Chris. I would just kind of to tie it to a question that happened earlier when I believe it was Abukar was asking about indicators of success. I think, Chris, really what you said more eloquently there than I said earlier is kind of also what we're interested in at Art and Feminism, and why we try not to put hard numbers on things, is that we really are interested in more of the community impact on related to, the work that we are setting out to do as Art and Feminism. And so really that impact is what we're most interested in terms of indicators of success. Well, I know we are over time. I really want to thank you all for joining us today. I want to thank our interpreters for making this a multilingual space. Thank you, Chris, for joining us. Thank you to everyone on the Art and Feminism leadership team who is present today. and also who aren't present but help make this session happen. We are recording this session, so we'll have this recording available for future reference as well as those slide decks. So and I'll send that follow-up email tomorrow with all of those links. And so if you have any lingering questions, please let us know. We really look forward to you hopefully joining the campaign this year with your Art and Feminism event, and want to do what we can to help answer your questions to help make that happen. So thank you all again for joining us, and have a great rest of your Thursday.